Hello, everybody. It's 1 o'clock, and I would like to welcome you to our lunch talk. My name is Ina Sommer from Humboldt University. I'm really happy to have today two very important colleagues of the Edible City community here on board for this lunch talk, which is on fruitful grounds, co-creating edible spaces from streets to countryside. And as you see, we will move a bit from the city also to the rural sites and amplify a bit of perspective. In this webinar, we want to discover how public spaces become thriving, edible landscapes, enriching both the environment and the local food systems. And we will strive to integrate strategies that transform urban and rural landscapes into productive and resilient green areas, reconnecting people with place, with food, with traditional ecological knowledge, and to look for sustainable land stewardship in urban and in rural areas. I will start with some first slide. Please, next slide. This lunch talk was born as a part of the EdicitNet network, which is still functioning. You are invited to join the network, Edible City Network it's called. There we will also put new informations in. Always you will find there as well the talks afterwards and more information. The EdicitNet project has two follower projects, let's say, currently, which is the Hibidi project, Healthy and Biodiverse Edible Cities, and a new one which currently starts, which is called Ecofabulance, where I will tell you a bit more about this in some seconds. Next slide. Well, our mission in all the projects that we are working and also our guest speaker today are in line with this is that edible city solutions are able to overcome the mismatch between the traditional nature-based solutions and the citizens by deepening the social dimension of nature-based solutions in urban and rural area, of course. We mainstream successful co-creation practices from edible city solutions that are socially inclusive, that invite citizens to co-create the sustainable development of their societies, and of course to proactively change their environment to their benefit. And we also, by this, including the citizens from the first steps, we induce a paradigm shift to also healthier and environmental friendlier lifestyles. So we are working as scientists as a part of the co-created community of knowledge and practice. Next slide. What are edible city solutions? You all know this. So we include really all types of urban farming, food production, distribution, and consumption. And this also in very tight connections to the rural sites. Our solutions are combined with closed loop systems for sustainable water, nutrient, and waste management. And of course, these measures also foster urban biodiversity and health. And so the urban fruit production uses normally innovative principles of ecological design, closed material and energy flows. Next slide. Why it's important to not have only green cities, I would highlight some knowledge that we have from literature. Later on, you can check the slides and also look into the literature. It's important to have also biodiversity-friendly cities. And this is mainly due to the following reasons. We know from literature, we have a lot of evidence that biodiversity supports the provision of ecosystem services in general, in the rural and the urban countryside, of course. There are studies from psychologists that biodiversity makes happy. So look on a nice biodiverse garden makes you happy. Biodiversity also supports public and planetary health. And of course, it's important that people come in touch with nature and with biodiversity. So it's important to support biodiversity where people live and work. And last but not least, as we have also today an architecture on board, biodiversity is quite attractive. So also for landscaping, it's a good tool to make our landscapes in general attractive via the fostering biodiversity in general. Next slide. The HBD project is now quite ongoing. We have implemented in this year 22 community gardens across Germany. We will implement some more in the next years. We are currently developing guidelines for implementation of community gardens in municipalities. Here we have also a target audience in the housing companies that are owning a lot of green space in the public areas, and where people also are doing a lot of things, and where they can experience biodiversity. In the study itself, we hope that we can, in September, provide some first insights from our results. We study the causal effects of species-rich community gardens on the health of adults that are gardening, and also on the biodiversity patterns in the gardens and around the gardens. Here you see some photos from these gardens that are all co-created together with the local community. Next slide. The second project that I want to shortly mention, it starts now. Our kickoff is on the 14th of July. In the Collegium Hungaricum in Berlin, quite in the city center at 9 a.m. we start. The project is called Ecofabulans, and it's funded by the Agroecology Partnership and co-funded by the European Union. The Ecofabulans project is innovating for future-proof agroecological, biodiverse, and sustainable productive landscapes in Europa. So it's really linked also to the EduCitNet community. Next slide, please. We from Humboldt University are coordinating this project, and we have colleagues involved from Hungary, from the University of Pest, our colleagues from the Free University both in Italy, the colleagues from the Open University of Cyprus, then our experienced colleague, which also collaborated with the EduCitNet project, Toni Kake from the Berlin Senate Department for Urban Mobility, Transport, Climate Action and Environment. And we have colleagues from South East Ireland on board, here from the Southeast Technological University, and last but not least, as well from the University College of Dublin. I only want to highlight one living lab, which is related to what we are listening today. That's why the next slide shows you a bit what is the story behind this. Ecofabulans tries to communicate also narratives that are promising and successful. And here again, we look on what we have done in the EduCitNet project. We look on innovating urban-rural linkages in northeastern Germany. To make it short, the current situation there is really dominated, the landscapes are dominated by agro-industrial landscapes with few organic farmings. There are a lot of tensions. For example, the pressure for accessible, healthy and resilient food production to meet the urban demand. In the case of northeastern Germany, for example, the big agglomeration of Berlin, is demanding healthy and ecologically friendly produced food. The city region food system is still quite unsustainable and leads to problems regarding the environment, but also health risks. And there's a rising demand for food security, responsible production, stronger urban-rural connectivities, a robust local food economy, fewer food miles, fewer food waste, and a greater social justice and equality. So the Living Lab mission of this Living Lab within the Ecofabulance project is building on the existing Edible City network and on the Living Labs that have been developed there, exploring the transformative impact of edible cities on the surrounding rural landscape. And we want to bridge the gap between urban food initiatives and the rural ecological movement, which is existing and quite strong, but not so good connected, by co-developing future-proof production consumption systems and facilitating agroecological transitions. Next slide. So now I'm happy to present to you Mina Samangooei. She's an architect and senior lecturer at the School of Architecture of the Oxford Brookes University. Mina holds a PhD in architecture. Her research is focused on individuals cultivating edible plants, on buildings in England, exploring the motivations and barriers. And over the past decade, Mina has worked a lot, engaged with sustainable architecture, social equity, and participatory approaches to placemaking, both in the UK and internationally. And Mina will introduce the Edible Streets project, a collaborative initiative between Edible Streets, a team which is dedicated to Edible Streets, and the Oxfordshire County Council. So I will stop here because we will get the first-hand insights from Mina. Mina, the floor is yours.
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me? Yep. Thank you so much for that introduction. That was perfect. So I don't need to say much around my first slide now. So next slide, please. So as was already said, my background is specifically looking at growing food on buildings as an architect. And then sort of generally now the nature integration in cities. So I also look at biodiversity within the built environment as well as edible landscapes. And the current project that I'm looking at is Edible Streets, which is what I'm presenting to you. And when I talk about streets and edible streets, it's particularly streetscapes. So land in street settings is what this is focusing on, community gardening on this type of land. And the theory that underpins the work that I'm doing is looking at behavior change, looking at holistic sustainability. So these are the key theories that underpin what we look at in our work. And also participatory design and co-creation is really important. Next slide, please. So the research questions in this work has been mainly starting with the feasibility of growing food in streetscapes. Is this even possible? And there are some amazing case studies. For example, Incredible Edible in Todmorden. They've been looking at integrating food in cities in the UK for a long time now. And what we want to look at in Oxford is the feasibility of hyper-local growing. So residents who live or work on a street, can they form community growing on streetscapes? And what are the motivations and barriers for edible streets in Oxford? What would sort of drive people, residents, workers to want to do that directly in the streets where they live or work? So the outputs so far have been an edible street intervention implemented on a street in Oxford in a kind of what we call deprived area of Oxford in Barton. And then from this work, we also, and the research, we've developed a how-to guide that is available live on the County Council website for people to download. Any resident in the world, or especially Oxfordshire, can download this guide and understand how they can grow food in their street with their neighbours. Next slide, please. So I've made this sort of our journey so far into kind of a roadmap, so you can follow it from the top. And I'll start with our current food system. Next slide, please. So we're sort of, many of you will be familiar with how our current food system works, in the sense that it's heavily reliant on fossil fuels at most of the areas, whether it's the farming, a lot in monocultures, in rural land, and then there's the processing and manufacturing, there's some kind of packaging, a distribution to the urban areas via catering or retail, and then we consume it and then we throw it away. So it's sort of what we're trying to look at is, can these edible cities be part of re-looking at this food system to be less reliant on fossil fuels and more sort of closed loop? And so for those greenhouse gases that this food system causes to actually go down, as well as the ecological and social advantages. Next slide, please. So this is sort of what we're mainly trying to get this food system to look like. So more local growing, more peri-urban growing, and growing in polycultures in rural settings and in urban settings. And then sort of how the waste from food can loop back into the system through organic fertilizers and organic ways of pest control, reducing the packaging, all these kind of things as to it by making it more local. Next slide, please. And as we know, just having plants in cities is beneficial in many different ways. So any plants, not necessarily edible plants, there's stormwater retention, increased biodiversity, sheltering buildings increases energy efficiency, so the urban heat island effect, alleviating that, alleviating air pollution potentially in really sort of polluted streetscapes, amenity space and psychological calming. But when you make these edible plants, you can do a closed loop waste management system in the food system that I showed in the diagram. We can reconnect people with food, increase access to affordable fresh food, especially in areas that we call food deserts in the UK, where it's difficult to access affordable fresh food and you might need a car to go to a larger supermarket. So these are called food deserts. And reduced food-related greenhouse gas emissions and general ecological footprint of the food system. Next slide, please. So back to this diagram, what we then, from this sort of basis of understanding of what we need to do with our food system, we got together with a colleague from nutrition and a colleague from psychology, Emma Davies and Pariyara Sangeetha Tondra. And we looked at the feasibility initially of edible streets in Oxford. So is this even possible? And then what we did as part of that feasibility study is do some public engagement events to see what are people's thoughts about the idea of growing food in their streets. And people would, we sort of initially expected quite a lot of negativity, sort of because streets are mainly, of course, for transport, for cars, for moving around in cities. So we were thinking that maybe people, felt that this is not the right place to grow food. But actually, people were so excited about growing food in their streets, especially the quiet streets, that not sort of main busy streets, but quiet side streets that we have a lot of in urban areas all over the world. And they were sort of, there was a general air of, yes, how can we do this? Is this even possible? And we connected with Oxfordshire County Council Public Health to see what they think of this idea. And they were like, yes, of course. If people are interested, we're interested as well. We've got a healthy place shaping initiative that comes from sort of higher government. We want to make our urban areas healthier for people. And this is certainly part of it, potentially part of social prescribing that doctors can do for people. And so the council were really keen to help us see how can this be even possible? How can we remove the red tape, if there is red tape. And of course, being the UK that loves bureaucracy, there is a lot of red tape involved in terms of what we can even do in our streets. So at the moment, the only thing we can do in our streetscapes, generally in councils all over the UK, is put a skip. So we can apply for a skip license to put a large sort of bin type skip on our street for temporarily, or we can apply to do a drop curb. So this is to drop the curb so people can drive onto their front garden. So those kind of drop curb applications happen a lot. But that's it. Any street furniture, any street trees, all those kind of things, that is more a council level, and just regular people who use these streets are not really able to touch any part of their streets, and they can't apply to do this. So this was the first step in understanding of, okay, we need to look at this. How is it possible to grow on land in streetscapes? And this was actually really nicely close connected with a right to grow motion that was approved by Hull City Council, I think about 2 or 3 years ago. And they've been working on how they can develop a kind of license model for people to be able to grow on plots of land in urban areas. So not specifically on highways land or in streetscapes, but just generally publicly owned land. We should have the right to grow on it. And how can we do this? What kind of licenses can we get in place? And last month they recently released the license. It's all available now on their website, so that's worth looking at. And I think they worked incredibly closely with Incredible Edible as well, and people like Pam Warhurst, who I think might be in this call. And so that was really, really great, because that's what we've also been looking at, which is quite interesting. And we're particularly looking at streetscapes. So from this sort of initial feasibility, we implemented a small planter on a road called Malford Road in Barton. And this was without sort of official license. It was more communication emails with the highways team. Who look at, so highways are people who look particularly at streetscapes and maintain streetscapes for councils. So they said by email that, yes, okay, you can put this 1 meter by 1 meter planter on Malford Road. We'd be okay with that. So that was the first step. And then we managed to get funding for a PhD student, Chris, who's been looking at this further, and also started thinking of developing this how-to guide. Next slide, please. So this is a sort of vision of initially of what this feasibility could look like that we showed to the public. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So from moving on from this, in order to develop the how-to guide, we thought, let's try and get funding to do this at a larger scale. And the residents on Malford Road said, yes, please, yes, if you can get funding, we'd love to have more planters, because we're enjoying the 1 meter by 1 meter one, but it would be great to have more. So we managed to get some more funding to co-create the design of edible street intervention on Malford Road in Barton. And it's been in since summer 2023, and in the spring you can see from the images at the top of co-creation process, and then a local architect helped us develop these drawings into something firmer. And we ended up with a kind of hexagonal shaped planter that residents wanted to sit around. And we ended up having enough funding to have 7 of these planters all down the street. And each of the planters were negotiated with the neighbor who lives directly next to that planter. So there's their house, and then their front garden, and then a pavement and the grass verge. So the planter would be on a bit of grass directly outside their house. So each resident who was interested to have a planter directly outside their house, they became the kind of person who is what we call this level 1 engagement. This person who has a direct relationship with that planter, and if it's looking like how maybe they don't want it to look, or if the soil is really dry on a really, really hot period that sometimes we can have in the UK, these kind of drought seasons, then they're the sort of person who is directly going to water that perhaps. And then there's the level 2 engagement, which is other people in their street who might engage with that planter that they have particularly in front of their house. And then the level 3 engagement is the wider community who might do their dog walking route through Mouthwood Road and might engage with the planters. And by engage, we mean also harvest, take, maybe plant if they want to, and things like that. So that was the kind of understanding amongst residents that these planters are for everyone who might engage in the streetscape. But that level 1 engagement, our research found, is really actually quite important, of getting that accountable resident or group of residents for whatever's implemented in these streetscapes. And we had a lovely gardening event, and we got some more funding in Redrow housing donated to put some fruit trees as well, because the residents wanted some fruit trees. And Thames Water is giving funding for water butts in each of the houses, so residents don't have to use their own taps to water if they need to. Next slide, please. So this was a gardening party that we ended up having with the residents, where we planted in the autumn 2023. We planted all the planters that we had implemented based on the sort of perennial edibles that we discussed with the residents, and also some annuals if the residents particularly wanted annuals to put in there as well, but they're mainly perennial edibles that will come back every year. Next slide, please. And so from this process, we had a really good grasp of developing a how-to guide for edible streets in Oxfordshire. So how can you even do it? Next slide, please. I think it has a QR code for the how-to guide. So I'll just tell you a bit more detail about the how-to guide. So initially this research looked at the theory of change for what we're trying to achieve in communities, and with edible streets, what is the ultimate vision? And then we did sort of focus groups and interviews with local residents in order to understand the motivations and barriers. And also we had some stakeholder workshops with county council members and other sort of key stakeholders from, say, community groups in Oxfordshire, to also see what they think the motivations and barriers for growing food on streets with your neighbours could be. And then so we also gathered some impact evidence as well from what we've implemented so far, and developed a how-to guide, and are currently writing 2 research papers. So next slide, please. And this is a link to the how-to guide. So if you want to use the QR code, you can actually be able to access the PDF, hopefully. And so you can see the first page, the title page, is essentially kind of like a contents page, but also a roadmap to how you would go through the process. So first of all, obviously explaining to people why even do this, so reasons for growing locally. And then the step-by-step process as to how you would even start. So engaging with your community. So if you want to, as an individual, grow food in your street with your neighbours, then the first step is to engage with your direct neighbours, with your community, and see if they're even interested, if there's anyone else interested. So once you have that kind of engagement happen and you've thought about something, you start speaking about finding a place that might be good to grow. So you speak and say, okay, so our street is quite tight. We don't have any grass verges. We don't even have much parking spaces, but we do really want to try and grow food somehow together. How would we do this? And every street would be different. So you kind of discuss that together, finding a place to grow. And then you'll look into designing together. Okay, now we know where we might grow. How would this look like? And then we've included some different ways to grow, so different case studies. And then looking at, okay, so everything's set up now. We know we want to do. We've got case studies. We've got a design. How do we get permission? And so we sort of speak a bit about, okay, who owns the land, how to find out who owns that tiny bit of pavement that you might want to grow on. Who actually owns it? Is it the city council? Is it the county council? Is it a private owner? And it was just a step-by-step process as to how to do that and how to potentially gain permission. And then obviously looking at costs and sources of funding that could be a barrier and so on. So, and hopefully then they can implement and decide what they want to grow. Next slide, please. So from this how-to guide that we developed, we wanted to do a post-use evaluation of the planters on Malford Road. So that's currently in progress, and we're doing the thematic and content analysis for that data. And so far, it's really, really quite fascinating that one of the main things that they've said has worked really well is that they can connect with each other. The social cohesion with each other has been one of the primary things that they really love about the initiative, that they're able to meet each other occasionally on Malford Road. If someone's tending to their planter, they can have a bit of a chat with a neighbour. This is sort of a lot of the comments that have been coming up has been to do with the improvement in social cohesion. And potentially if there are any design improvements that come out from this analysis, we'll be looking at that as well. And of course, every design is different. And so far, from this roadmap, as well as part of the post-use evaluation, we've been developing a license model with Oxfordshire County Council Highways on how you can apply to grow on county council land. So watch this space. By July, so next month, we're going to hopefully have a link on the county council website on the highways page for applying for edible streets. So now you no longer need to wait for just apply for skip or drop curb. There'll also be an edible street application form as well that's connected with the license that we've developed with the council. So watch this space, and thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Mina, for this nice and inspiring talk. We already have some questions in the chat, but I would ask our audience first to listen to the next input, and then we will have a discussion together. So I'm very happy to introduce our next speaker. We know each other since some years.
Mm-hmm.
Kai Gildhorn is was or is, I don't know, Kai, let's talk about it, a CFAR, but also graduated as engineer.
Yes.
And, in different fields, actually. For example, for the company Climate Partner and the Agency for Renewable Resources, a project management organization of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Home Affairs. Kai is founder of Terra Concordia, which is like a small SME, which is like behind the very important Mundraub website, and also behind Streugut. And he also deals theoretically and practically with all aspects of tree care. So if you need somebody who really knows about trees and pruning, etc., then please contact Kai. Mundraub.org is a user-driven mapping tool for public orchids, which is mostly focused on German-speaking countries, but since 2010, more than 100,000 user-generated entries have been produced. But Kai will talk today about a different initiative, which is called Wir sind essbar, which is like We Are Edible, a network of cities and municipalities that take a special focus on planting care and sustainable use of their fruit trees. So Kai, please, the floor is yours. And thank you for being with us.
Yes, thank you for having me here, and thank you for this introduction. Yes, mundraub.org is probably the more important or better known platform than We Are Edible, but that's why we talk about We Are Edible today. And actually, it evolved from Mundraub. So you will see during my presentation how it's all connected. Yeah, this is a picture. It's a harvest camp a few years ago when I was still a bit younger than today. Next slide, please. So what is We Are Edible? It's yeah, we call it a network of cities. Basically, it's more a service for cities, which I will explain. And it's not cities, it's municipalities and also regions we are trying to address. What we do, it's two things. It's making the edible fruit trees of municipalities visible and accessible to citizens, and to help them to maintain and preserve their fruit trees in a professional manner. And as I said, Wir sind essbar evolved or emerged from mundraub.org. So let me explain what mundraub.org is. Leo, please, next slide. Mundraub.org is a mapping tool. It's a picking map for or a harvesting map for public fruit trees. Here you can see Vienna, the capital of Austria. And behind these little green bubbles, there are fruit trees hidden. And it works like that. If you find a fruit tree on public ground, and it has to be public, you can find out through like city authorities, or if you ask the neighbors, or if it's next to a public street, it's usually public. Then you can add this tree to the map, and it gets an icon like on the left-hand side. On the upper, you see a plum or a nut or something else, and there's a legend: fruit trees, fruit bushes, herbs, and nuts as well. Yes, and you can add it and make it visible to other people. How it, like, maybe I tell the story how it developed. We went kayaking with a few friends like 15 years ago, and we bought fruits in the supermarket, bananas, and also apples as well. And when we pitched our tent on a water campsite, like for paddlers, we were surrounded by a paradise of fruit trees. And we had bought our stuff like fruits, but there were so many fruits around us. So we had the idea, okay, let's bring it into the internet and make a map, a picking map out of it. And that's how this story started. And over the last 15 years, as Ina said already, it has become well known. Like around 1 million people find their trees fruits every year on mundraub.org. And I think it's 120,000 points of interest at the moment. And but as you can imagine, some fruit, like the quality of these data is not sometimes not so good, because we don't know, is it really public or is it maybe private, and you can't see if it's like so we had the idea to offer a service to municipalities to add their official fruit tree data to our database. And maybe next slide please, Leo. And it works like that. So we like municipalities that are interested to show their data supply their tree inventory. We filter the edible fruit-bearing trees and import them to our database. So the data from these cities and municipalities are valid and of high quality, and are visible on mundraub.org, and also, next slide please, on other websites like the platform site We Are Edible as well. Next slide please. You can embed the map in city websites as well, and also it's also shown on our app. Please, next slide. there is no, hang on, not yet. And you can add, like, cities add information about the trees, like what kind of tree is it, what kind of open data policy are they following. There's usually a disclaimer that they exclude, or that they don't are not responsible for accidents if you fall off the tree, or and which under which license these data are published. And next slide, I show you the apps. There are 2 apps. Leo, next slide, please. The Mundraub Navigator, Fruchtradar, and the Zero Waste app. And right now we are working eventually on a new app, which is for Android and iOS. The apps you see there, they are only for Android. Okay, yes, the next slide, please. Now you might ask, why are municipalities interested to publish their trees? There are different motivations, which I show you in this table. For instance, as you can see, there are usually smaller municipalities. We are not working with big cities. Trier, you might know, Trier has an open data strategy. They say, we would like to show our data to our citizens, and Mundraub is a good idea to show our edible trees. We imported 2,000 of their trees. Kernen in Bavaria, they would like to digitalize their yellow ribbon. You might have heard of it, but I will explain later. They import now, we are now started to work with them, 1,500 trees. Langenau in Baden-Württemberg, they also have the yellow ribbon. They import 1,200. And Friedrichshafen is quite interesting. It's close to the Bodensee, and this is the most important fruit growing region in Germany. And they had a big problem with fruit theft. So people thought, okay, I can pick an apple, no problem. And what they want is they show in reality which trees are free for picking and which trees are not free for picking. And they use Mundraub as a digital equivalent to the signs that they put on the trees. They imported 640 and so on. So right now I think we have 20 municipalities working with us. Yes, what is the yellow ribbon? Next slide, please. You can see here. Yellow ribbons are ribbons that are tied around trees, and they indicate that these trees are free for picking, that they are good for foraging, and that they stand on public ground. Right now, there are 300 municipalities in Germany and Austria, and I saw that in Luxembourg as well, that use this yellow ribbon. And I think it's quite a good idea, because it makes city orchids more accessible. And where someone's coming. Yes, next slide, please. I tried to assess the potential of public fruit trees in Germany. And if you remember this table, there were always more than 100 fruit trees per municipalities, okay? Some had thousands, and we are 11,000 in Germany. And if you multiply it, you get at least 1 million fruit trees on public ground in Germany. I think it's maybe 10 or 20 million. So this is quite a big number, huge number. I think it's really good for food sovereignty as a backup. But next slide, please. I am also a professional fruit arborist, and I've seen many trees in the last few years, and most of them are not in a good shape. For instance, this one here, it's in Berlin. It's a compensation area for the airport, and maybe you have some some idea how fruit trees should look like. Like these branches are very thin, they hang down because it's too young to bear fruit actually. Next slide, please. This one is also a young tree on the compensation side. Young fruit tree with too much fruit load. So this branch will probably break at some time. Next slide, please. I show you some bad examples, okay? What I've seen. This is in a housing area. It's more a bush than a tree. It's not pruned. Very dense, very small fruit because too dense, no light coming in. And the next one as well. Another one in Berlin, compensation area, very thin, long branches. It will probably bend down when the first apples grow. And this Mirabella as well. There's no light coming into the tree, and so what I want to say is it's easy to plant a fruit tree, but it's an art to really educate it. It's like a child. You have to take care of it the first 15 years. You have to prune it. You have to eradicate pests. You have to water them regularly, especially now when it's dry. And this is forgotten very often. And that's why we founded this network. And this we would like to awaken awareness for that it's not enough to just grow or to plant a tree, but also to take care of it. And it's not enough to collect data and show data, make them visible, but also really care of this living being, this tree, okay? Next one, please. So the status quo is, to sum up, so we have millions of fruit trees in public spaces, at least in Germany, and most of them are outdated, too old, or neglected. There is a high interest. We can say this because Munterop is still quite, it's well known and it's used a lot. And even municipalities start using this yellow ribbon. So there's a high interest in fruit trees and edible landscapes, urban landscapes. But what I have to say is there's a training gap amongst skilled workers on the one side, so amongst the arborists. And on the other side, there's also a training gap in these tendering departments in municipalities. They don't really know what can I expect from potential service providers, from arborists. What do I have to write into this procurement? I don't really know. So we want to help them to find proper professional workers to care for the trees. And there's one bullet point: emerging fruit crisis. Maybe it sounds a bit too dangerous, but if we look back the last couple of years or 5 years during this Corona crisis, the supply chains were not as stable as they used to be. And I'm not sure if we can import fruits from New Zealand or South America in the next 10 years. I don't know, especially if we have a look at this graph. In Germany, we have a low level of self-sufficiency in fruits. This fourth column shows fruits, and only 20% of the fruits in Germany are from Germany. Okay, potatoes, meat and stuff, it's more than 100% we are exporting, but fruits is very low. So I think public orchards, public fruit trees are a good backup for crises. Next one, please. Next slide. We wrote a guide to tendering for professional fruit tree care. And it's especially for municipal employees to learn a bit what they should focus on when they find arborists. Okay, and we would like them to help to build, to develop healthy fruit trees as a part of a biodiverse urban landscape. And at least in the last but not least, I can say that working with trees, like really working with them, it's a really meaningful work. Like we are all talking about artificial intelligence at the moment, and many jobs are probably banned by this artificial intelligence. But to prune a fruit tree and to take care of the nature, it can't be substituted by AI. So I think it's good to have these skills and to play a role in this AI world in the future. And that's my appel, or how can I say? It's
a call.
A call, yeah. And I want to finish this presentation with these words, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Kai. Yeah, thank you all for these nice presentations. I would, pick up some of the questions now from the chat, and maybe the first one is more technical to Kai. There's a question from Kaspar Kiefer from the Quartiersmanagement Heerstraße in Berlin, I guess. Is it possible to enter the database already for fruit trees, for example? Also Heerstraße, Spandau, I guess. Do you have, can the people enter there and look for
Caspar, what do you mean with entering? Would you like to, so it's munterop.org is public, but if you want, or do you want to download the database?
Or maybe also enter data from this neighborhood. Caspar, can you?
You mean, okay, to tag them, to put them into the database. Yeah, you can do that. If as a private person, you can add single points of interest, but if you want to make a mass import, we have to help you, because we need to adapt it to the structure of our database. Is that what you mean, or?
Yeah, Caspar, if it's not the answer, then please enter again a question, and then we can answer this. Another question which was here in the chat was maybe to both, to Mina and Kai, how these edible fruit streets, etc., could let's say be part of a green gentrification process, and how to deal with this. Any thoughts about this? Maybe Mina, you first.
Sure.
Also the discussion in the chat about the fundings to plant new trees.
Yes, exactly. It's part of the reason, well, the funding is part of the reason why we made the how-to guide, is so that people can have a place where they could potentially explore how to even find funding. And a lot of the poorer communities that we know well in Oxford would, first of all, they wouldn't maybe even think that they can do something in their street or change their street in any way. And then if they do have the idea, then of course the funding becomes the barrier. Who will pay and how will we fund it? And we, obviously if they're interested to even organize and everything, maybe they're also interested in maintaining. So funding for maintenance is maybe not so much an issue, but actually the setting up is a real barrier. But if we can sort of, through things like getting access to the how-to guide, I was saying in the chat that we're working with Oxfordshire Community Action Group to try and sort of get the word out in terms of, look, that it's a possibility to grow food on public land now. Did you know this? Did you know you could potentially grow food in streetscapes? Here's a how-to guide, so to get that general knowledge out there. And then maybe sort of it just becomes a general, in terms of gentrification, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because as soon as we make an area nicer, then of course people if they go and view a house in that area, they're going to be more willing to want to pay the price proposed, or maybe go higher. So it's a very difficult one, and our research has not looked at it at all, really. Kai, have you looked at it and gentrification?
I think that the trees are they're part of the urban landscape already. It's not like a community garden or what you do. I think that might be might attract people. Yeah. No, I wouldn't say that. No, I wouldn't say it's a gentrification. It's not a driver of gentrification. Wouldn't say no. Have never heard of that, or haven't. Don't have this experience.
Yeah, maybe I can add a bit. Yes, in Germany, actually, it's not a discussion, even in the neighborhoods that are social economically, let's say, complicated. We haven't so far such situations that they are let's say that they are pushing gentrification. We have in general in Berlin at least so much gentrification ongoing that we have rather the problem that we have more such initiatives in already gentrified areas, and so less initiatives where we have still these socioeconomic problems. Yes, but it's a really interesting topic for those that are coming from social science to connect more to this. Something regarding the funding, maybe, which is really helpful to connect your talks, because Kai mentioned that it's not only about planting a tree, it's about taking care for the tree on a longer run. It's a knowledge that is forgotten, one of these traditional ecological knowledges. Yes, Kai, this is really an important part of your work, that these trees should be, we should take care about these trees. And really, I would like to highlight the Leitfaden for the pruning of trees. Kai, this is currently in German available.
Yeah, it is in German.
To make a translation, or do we have a translation to English?
You know what? I think for the others, we were part of this, or are part of this edible city network. And I think what was her name from Brighton?
Yes.
I think
Catherine Bond.
Yes.
No. It was.
We had a colleague also in the editing project. She was translating this. We will.
I think she translated it. So
yes.
And so there should be a translation somewhere. So
we will check this, and okay, maybe we can highlight this again in the news section. And if you are in part of the Edible City Network, then we can share this as well with these communication. There was another topic which was touched, Kai. Maybe you can tell a bit about these aspects, that there are always concerns regarding pollution of streets near places. Maybe you can make some comments on this. Is there pollution on these fruits that are growing up nearby streets?
Actually not more than in like organic fruits that you buy in in organic stores, Ina, and I think you know it even better than I do, because you made a study a few years ago, and we used this study to calm down our community. And because there are always these questions, is it dangerous or is it polluted? And as far as I understood your study, it is a problem for plants growing on the ground, and they're like plants like that grow under the ground, like root vegetables, but it's no problem actually for apples or cherries. Maybe I wouldn't, and it depends. I think it depends on how far away it's from the street. So there's also this is also a factor, how far away it is, and if there is maybe a hedge in between or something. So, but in generally speaking, not a problem. You have to wash it. You have to wash this off, but you can then eat it.
Yes. Yeah, we have Stephanie already posted some literature on it in the chat. You can have a look on it. But as Kai mentioned, and Kai made really a big work on this to fight a bit against these always these concerns that are always in the discussion. Okay, let's talk a bit about these in our last minutes before we have to close the lunch. Regarding participation, how this works, what are your perception or your experiences? Mina, in your projects, how many people you need in a street to make the street edible? And maybe Kai can also share some final remarks regarding this.
Sure. So you need at least one advocate who is interested to do something, close to directly where they live or where their home is, or directly where they work. And so by directly, we mean they should be able to see it and walk to it within seconds, so it could be just meters away from where they are. So at least one person is fine, but ideally, obviously, they would have spoken to the rest of the people in their community. Maybe they're not so interested to be part of the growing, but they are aware of it. So that communication is really important with your surrounding neighbors. But often it becomes a group of people because you kind of get together with an interest to do something.
Yes. And Kai, what is the minimum, the critical mass to make this vivid, your approach, fostering fruit trees in urban and rural landscape?
This is hard to say, but I think Mundraub and some other initiatives have created a field, I would say, mental, the awareness in the society is growing, or has been growing for the last 10 years, because it was so much in the media, and so people started to become aware of it, and so authorities, but also companies that plant trees as offsetting measure, they know it's not just planting, but because they've heard of it, there are many publications right now. So there is it's hard to say how many. I can't say that you need one advocate. I think it's 1 million people that use Mundraub every year, and they talk about it, and they exchange ideas, and then they become it's a social change, or the awareness is changing. So,
yes.
But it has changed already, and so yeah, I can't give you a number.
Yeah, but maybe a learning from Mundraub is really you have to continue working on this issue. It's not only about to put a platform, but you need continuous support and maintenance of all this infrastructure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, this and committed people like you, like Kai, like Mina, really, this is really crucial. And we are now running out of our hour. I really thank you for this really interesting insights in your work, for sharing so much important material. We will share the presentations. We will also link again all the resources we have in the chat. If there are some questions left that we could not answer, we will answer them in the next mails that we send around with our information and the slides and also the recordings. And Leo, if you could go to the next slide, because I would like to wish you a really nice summertime in the gardens. We will talk to each other, of course. Also, Mina and Kai, we will meet, and I would really wish you a nice summer. Stay outside. Found a new garden, plant a tree. No, not a tree. Maybe better in autumn, but prepare this. And look for the nice fruits around. And we see each other in the next lunch talk in September. We will share this information also via our website and our newsletters. So thank you all for being with us. And have a nice summer and see you in September again. And thank you for Stephanie and Leo, which were supporting this in the back. And thank you, Mina and Kai, for your presentations.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having us.